Try to imagine your city with every toilet removed tonight. Not just yours. Every toilet in every house, school, restaurant, hospital, and apartment. By tomorrow, one problem would start spreading everywhere. Your city would suddenly have to solve the same question humans struggled with for thousands of years. Where does all the waste go? Some ancient solutions were far smarter than you would expect. And some were exactly as bad as you imagine. For most of human history, this was not a city problem at all. Humans lived in relatively small groups, often moving across large areas. If you needed to go, you could move away from camp. Use the ground, cover what you could, and leave. There was space. Then humans did something that changed everything. They stopped moving. Around 12,000 years ago, farming began pulling more people into permanent settlements. Villages grew, then towns, then cities. Food could be stored in one place. Water could be collected. Walls could protect thousands of people at once. But every person inside those walls created waste every single day. Suddenly, the problem was not where one person could go. It was where an entire city could put it. And that question is much harder than it sounds. You cannot keep digging holes forever when homes, wells, animals, markets, and streets are all packed into the same limited space. Put waste too close to drinking water, and you create a danger people could not even see. Let it collect near homes, and the city becomes nearly impossible to live in. So some early cities began building sanitation into the city itself. The ancient Indus cities of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa are famous for this. More than 4,000 years ago, neighborhoods had carefully built brick drains. Water from houses and bathing areas could move into covered channels. Archaeologists have also found structures interpreted as toilets or latrines. Others may have used simple pots or pits. People were already designing streets around the idea that dirty water had to be moved away. But there was a catch. A drain is not magic. It only moves the problem. Those channels had to be cleaned, sediment collected, pits filled. Whatever left one part of the city eventually arrived somewhere else. Move it away from people. Then figure out what to do with it later. A palace announces itself. A sewer does the opposite. The better it works, the less you have to think about what is happening underneath you. Ancient Rome took that idea to a much larger scale. Aqueducts brought huge amounts of water into the city. Drains and sewers carried water away. Public latrines placed rows of seats beside one another. Yes, beside one another. For many Romans, using a public latrine was far less private than using a bathroom today. People could sit in the same room and talk. While doing something modern, society usually hides behind a locked door. Rome also had the Cloaca Maxima, an enormous drainage channel that became part of the city's sewer network. It sounds like Rome had solved the problem. Not quite. Many homes were not connected to a sewer. Chamber pots and cesspits still existed. Some waste was removed by workers. Some reached streets or drains. And much of what entered the sewer system eventually flowed toward the Tiber. Rome had built an impressive way to move waste. It had not invented a way to make waste disappear. That distinction matters because after Rome, European cities kept running into the same problem in different forms. In medieval and early modern London, households used privies, chamber pots, public latrines, and cesspits. A cesspit was basically an underground holding tank without the modern tank. At first, useful. Eventually, full. And when it filled, someone had to empty it. Workers known as nightmen did exactly that, often after dark. City authorities also had rules about where waste could be dumped and how toilets should be maintained. So the popular image of medieval people simply throwing everything into the street while nobody cared is too simple. People cared, they complained. They made rules. They fined people. The problem was that rules could not create a sewer system. And here is where the story gets much worse. As cities became denser, more people depended on shallow wells, rivers, streams, and pumps for water. Waste could seep into the same environment that supplied drinking water. People knew filth and foul smells were bad. What they did not understand was why disease could spread through water that looked perfectly normal. For centuries, many blamed dangerous air. Then cities invented something that seemed like an obvious improvement: the flushing toilet. In 1596, Sir John Harrington described a water flushing toilet and installed working versions. It was clever, but it needed a large amount of water, and most homes did not have the plumbing or sewer connections needed to make it practical. Almost 2 centuries later, in 1775, Alexander Cumming patented a flushing water closet with an important improvement. A water-filled bend in the pipe helped block foul smells from coming back into the room. That bend, in updated forms, is still beneath modern toilets and sinks. The toilet was getting better. The city around it was not ready. And that created a bizarre reversal. As flush toilets became more common in 19th century London, they could make the city's waste problem worse. Instead of leaving waste in a cesspit where it could be removed, water closets sent more of it into drains, and many of those drains led toward the Thames. The newest bathroom technology was helping turn one of London's most important water sources into a sewer. Then, people started dying. In 1854, physician John Snow investigated a cholera outbreak in Soho. He mapped where people had become sick. He noticed a strong cluster around the Broad Street water pump. Snow already suspected cholera was spreading through contaminated water, not bad air. That idea was controversial, but the pattern around the pump was difficult to ignore. The pump handle was removed. Snow's investigation became one of the most famous moments in the history of public health. Still, knowing that dirty water could spread disease did not instantly rebuild London. The city needed pressure. It got it 4 years later. The summer of 1858 was hot. The Thames was heavily polluted with sewage and other waste. The smell became so overwhelming that even the Houses of Parliament could not escape it. London called it the Great Stink. For years, waste had been somebody else's problem. Now the people making the laws could smell it through their own windows. Parliament moved quickly to fund a massive new sewer system. Engineer Joseph Bazalgette and the Metropolitan Board of Works built intercepting sewers. They collected flows from older drains and carried sewage farther downstream instead of letting it enter the Thames through central London. This was the real breakthrough. Not one toilet, a network. Fresh water coming in, wastewater moving out. Pipes connected to larger pipes, sewers crossing beneath a city. Pumping stations keeping everything moving. The modern toilet only works because an entire hidden city exists underneath the visible one. Modern sewer systems eventually became connected to wastewater treatment. Sewage is processed before water is returned to the environment. So when you flush today, the waste does not vanish. It begins a journey. Through a pipe you can see. Into pipes you cannot. Under streets, through sewers, towards systems most people never think about unless they stop working. And privacy changed along the way too. For Romans, a row of public seats could be normal. In later homes, chamber pots might sit in bedrooms. Some historical toilets were shared between several people. The private bathroom you lock behind you is not an ancient human instinct. It is partly a product of architecture, plumbing, wealth, and changing social expectations. So what did humans do before modern toilets? They used open ground. Pots, pits, cesspits, shared latrines, drains, sewers, workers who carried waste away, rivers that carried it even farther, and every system was trying to solve the same basic problem. How do you keep what leaves the human body away from the water, food, and people that keep the human body alive? We usually tell the story of civilization through kings, wars, monuments, roads, and inventions people wanted to show off. But beneath that story is another one. A city cannot survive on palaces alone. It needs clean water. It needs waste removal. It needs thousands or millions of strangers to live close together without contaminating the things they all depend on. Sanitation may be one of civilization's greatest achievements precisely because it is so easy to ignore. When it works, you press a handle and forget about it. When it fails, almost everything else becomes less important. Tomorrow, you will probably walk into a bathroom, close the door, and use a system that would look impossible to most humans who ever lived. You will press one handle. A few seconds later, the problem will be gone from your home. But it was never really gone. Thousands of years of drains, pits, laws, workers, diseases, engineers, pipes, and failed solutions are hidden behind that one flush. The toilet is not just an object in your bathroom, it is the button at the end of one of humanity's longest engineering problems.